What's going on, sports card hobby family? Made it to the end of the week.
You take the card and put it in the sleeve.
We're going to talk about a different type of subject, something that I've been thinking about. This is kind of one of those where the thought popped up to me yesterday. I was like, how can I tie this into a video? Because I think it would be really great to get your perspective on these different types of pockets. And what we're talking about is investing, in quotation marks, and I'll use that kind of loosely. Speculating might be a better word. Holding items for kind of long-term potential. With collectibles, we're really buying for a store of value. You're buying a thing, you're holding it, you're selling it, hopefully for a higher price at some point down the road, whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, a year, or it's 50 years from now when your family ends up selling it themselves. The point is that eventually the stuff gets sold, whether you want to or someone else does. Whether we like it or not, whether that's your plan, kind of irrelevant. Eventually the stuff gets sold down the line. All right, so we're going to look at investing in a player versus a character versus a brand. And some of you, and one thing that I've noticed is a lot of my viewership collects a variety of different things. So I think this can be a fun conversation. And in the comments, please share what it is that you collect. It might be sports cards, it might be non-sports, it might be who knows anything. But I would like to learn kind of your thought process behind collecting certain things, obviously not necessarily for monetary value, just for fun of it. You're collecting Pez dispensers just because you like those or whatever. But then also maybe you've got like a certain thing, you've got a certain block of items where you actually do care about long-term value on those things and you're buying strategically for that reason. Before we get started, we've got our Friday shout outs. JustCollect.com is the place if you are looking to sell a collection. Leighton Sheldon at JustCollect.com has been doing it for decades. I'll put an image up of his website. It's just JustCollect.com. A lot of different resources there to help, and Leighton Sheldon has been in the industry for a long time. He also does educational type videos and different articles and things on the site. So definitely check out JustCollect.com. Wooten Sports Cards on Whatnot, my guy over there, sells out just about weekly. Really a big football card guy, which you guys know I'm a big football card guy myself. And so Wooten Sports Cards, if you're looking to just have some fun on the live streaming app on Whatnot, check out Wooten Sports Cards today. And last but certainly not least, SlabMags.com. We have got, of course, nice cards. Some of our cards, not necessarily the entire collection, but maybe you got 5, 10 cards that are your best cards. You don't want the surface to get messed up. You want to display it in a brilliant way. Check out the different color combinations they've got. They've got a huge variety there. The Sports Card Dad code will get you 10% off of these babies. And again, just displays really well, and it protects surface, protects autographs, UV protection here, whereas the slabs themselves don't guarantee UV protection. Plus, you drop it or whatever, you crack it, you don't want to deal with having to get it reholdered, sending it back into the company. Forget on the SlabMags.com site, use that Sports Card Dad code for 10% off the order. All right, investing in players versus characters versus a brand. What's better? What's worse? Is there a diversification thing? I am a diversifier. I don't think that's a word, but it is now. I'm a diversifier when it comes to this topic. I'm a huge 80s, 90s nostalgia nerd, as you can see with the background, the t-shirt, I'm Voltroning it up. This brings me a lot of happiness, absolutely a lot of happiness. On the channel here, of course, we're talking a lot about sports cards, but what is the thing that always seems to happen, especially with modern players? There's such an up and a down. There's a hype cycle. There's a lot of excitement. We just had the NFL draft last night where 6 quarterbacks were drafted in the first 12 picks. Unbelievably, my New Orleans Saints did make the right choice and got a tackle since our offensive line is in shambles. But what that tells us, of course, is that over the next year, as new products are coming out, the breakers, the repackers, and also just the singles buyers, there's going to be a ton of excitement around these 6 quarterbacks. I mean, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. They're most likely going to be starters, except maybe Michael Penix Jr., who went to Atlanta shockingly at 8, with Kirk Cousins just getting $180 million. He's going to be sitting for a while, I suppose, or be the backup. I don't know. But in a collectibles market right now, a sports card world where new QBs are exciting. Everyone gets worked up and there's a lot of money spent on the cards for these new QBs. Of course, what's going to happen here? You might have 1, 2 of these guys that end up having great careers, but the truth and the reality we know is that of those 6, the odds are way against all 6 of them becoming fantastic starters. There's probably going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that do drop off. And that's why when people talk about modern cards and just the price drops in these cards, it's simple because we do have kind of that hype excitement part of it where, they come in, you've got new cards for them. And also, let me also just throw out here too, it's not necessarily just speculators, flippers with these cards. There's also, look, there might be Patriots fans that are just really excited about Drake May. They want to buy some Drake May cards. It's not necessarily that they're buying it because they're like, oh man, I'm going to be a millionaire on these Drake May cards. It's just because they're excited about their team. Same way, look, if the Saints in a couple years have that number 1, number 2 pick and they pick Arch Manning, my goofy butt is going to be out there buying Arch Manning cards, even though I know that they're probably overpriced, even though I know they're probably going to go down. And so sports cards and players and just the emotion around sports in general, it drives a lot of buying in collectibles. Sports cards is huge, and for good reason. Again, sports is huge, and this is an extension of our sports fandom. So we've got that, investing in players, buying into player cards. Now, many would say like, hey, look, we've got vintage cards. They've already proven themselves. They've already put out a career that you can say like, you know what, I'm going to buy into that based on their character, based on the career that they put together. That's impressive. And I do understand that. But there's also, there's perils there as well when you're looking at vintage cards. We've talked about it with it being alteration on vintage cards, whether it be restoration on vintage cards, there's trimming, there's different risks associated over time in this hobby where a vintage card started in the 50s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, 60s, and where it is today. They all have kind of a life cycle, and we all have to kind of decide, do I feel good about buying this particular vintage card based on the risks associated? Not that those risks aren't also associated with modern and ultra modern cards. They certainly are, especially in today's world. But vintage cards, there is a special risk there as well that is well known, well defined, and it's just kind of paying attention, picking your spots. All right, so next up we've got buying into, investing in a character. This is where it gets a little interesting because I'll throw out an example here. You guys know that I'm a big Stranger Things card collector. This is a Jim Hopper autograph. It's a rare one. It's the blue version numbered out of 10. This was from 2018, that first set. This is my best Jim Hopper card. Actually, this is the best Jim Hopper auto card going back to 2018, other than the 1 of 1 that is sitting on eBay right now for like $20,000. It's been sitting there for a long time. I know the seller for that one. Shout out to Dave, 32 Cards. He has got that monster, and I don't think I'm ever going to get it because I think the price tag is just going to be too high. But I bought this card because of the Jim Hopper character, not because of David Harbour, the actor. If there was another card where David Harbour is playing a different character for a different show, or if it's just David Harbour Leaf, Pop Century autograph, I'm not buying it. I'm not interested in it. I'm buying strictly for the character in that particular show or movie. You look at Harrison Ford, Star Wars autographs. You see people pay huge money. Mark Hamill, Star Wars autographs. People will pay a lot of money for the Star Wars auto card. But if you put Harrison Ford's kind of a tough example because he's such a legendary actor. He'd probably still have pretty big money paid for his autograph. But Indiana Jones is another one people I think would pay a pretty penny for. If it's the iconic character, then they will pay up for it. But Mark Hamill also did the animated Joker voice. Probably would still bring pretty good money, but would it bring good money on a card if there was an animated series Joker where Mark Hamill signed it? Would it bring the same as his Luke Skywalker autograph cards? Absolutely not. Not even close. And I think that's kind of an interesting part of the hobby, some kind of a nuanced piece. And if you're just getting into character cards, that can be really tough to figure out, whether it's an auto card or if it's just a rare parallel or even just a vintage card for that particular thing. So non-sports and character cards really can get tricky. It can get tricky. And then also we've got buying into a brand, which is interesting. If you think about a Gucci bag or a Gucci backpack or, a Gucci product, some would say, oh, I'm buying that because it's got, beautiful leather, and I really enjoy the craftsmanship of that particular bag. That's not really true, though. A lot of people are buying those because of the history of the Gucci brand. You are literally buying that thing because of the long-time brand recognition of the quality for that particular thing. Rolex is a great example of this. Guess what? A lot of companies can make nice watches. A lot of them can. Rolex is just one of those. Why do people buy a Rolex? Because of the long-standing brand, because people have been collecting these watches over time. It's synonymous with American history. That Rolex watch, it's just part of the culture. It's part of the importance of the culture. And so people will buy into brands. Now, on the trading card side, I'm going to use the Walt Disney card going back to 31. This is considered the rookie card. Although some non-sports folks might say, hey, this is not the rookie card. They might have a different set, and which is fine. There's a lot of debate within non-sports cards. But even though this is a trading card, it doesn't necessarily represent a Disney character thing. Walt Disney is the brand. Walt Disney's name is literally the brand Disney. And so when you're buying into this card, you're buying into the creator, the founder, the guy that made it all happen for what we have now, one of the largest companies, most valuable companies in the world, which is Disney, but also one of the more important companies as far as brands go, because they also own other huge brands. Disney owns Marvel. Disney owns Star Wars. I mean, when you look at the content for a lot of the big movies that are coming out, Disney really runs this show, the Pixar stuff. I mean, think about all the different content that has come out from Disney over time and had success. All the different characters attached to Disney as an umbrella brand. It's massive. And so I think there's some interesting things there with that. That's the trading card version of, I guess, investing into a brand, buying into, speculating on a brand. What's also interesting, though, attached to that Disney brand, other collectibles associated. Vintage Disney collectibles. Vintage Disney collectibles bring huge money. There's a lot of times there will be old kind of props from the parks, from the theme parks going back to the 50s or something. There's all sorts of different toys going back, different interesting items associated with Walt Disney and the Disney brand going way back. Oh my gosh, the original art and the animation cells. There's so much attached to Disney, and there are big time collectors of those things. There's a lot of nostalgia around Disney. I've got friends that are big Disney theme park goers. They go every single year. They do have one kid, so it makes sense they're taking him to go do it as well. But even if they didn't have their son, they would still go because of the nostalgia of them going, as kids, and then being able to kind of relive that. And also, of course, the theme parks have evolved over time. The rides have gotten even more amazing and that sort of thing. And so Disney's just got a long, long importance of history within the culture, which I think is really interesting. And that's where I want to kind of push it to you all, push it to the audience. Do you have interest, not even just, of course, with playing cards and sports cards, but also in character cards or brands? Do you wrap in all of these things, or is it strictly sports cards that you're focused on? And what is the big draw? Is it the buying into the new prospect and kind of enjoying that hype cycle, the excitement cycle? I can't talk. Is it that part? Or is it like me, where I PC Breeze, where I've got fond memories of watching Breeze and the Saints, so for me, there's kind of a nostalgic element. And then, of course, you can kind of strategically buy certain cards that you think might be undervalued and that sort of stuff. Or maybe it's not a player that you watch. Maybe it's a vintage player that, is just a legend. It's more about American history than it is about having watched that player play. A lot of people buy Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth cards, or, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor rookie cards, and they never saw those guys play. It's just more about respect for the career, the person, and their importance in American history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Players versus characters versus brands. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.